Good evening, Tampa. How are you guys doing? So I would be remiss if I did not introduce my fiance, Willie. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I certainly appreciate it. Certainly I give all thanks to my Lord and my Savior, Jesus Christ, because had it not been for him, I wouldn't be standing before you, because every vision that I have had in reference to any of the work that I have been doing in Wimauma was as a result of visions and dreams and just speaking messages that God had been giving me. And I followed each and everything that he gave me, which led us to today. I also want to take a moment to thank all of my supporters that came out. You have no idea. Dave over here with his family came. Dave works in Wimauma it is the Wimauma Train Museum, but before it was that, it was the Willow Sawmill encampment and turpentine steel. And Dave allows me to go out there and just get all kinds of information, and it's been amazing. We received from the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners this past February. So that cemetery burial ground will forever be protected. And of course, all of the Wimauma residents that are here today and those that used to live in Wimauma, certainly thank you all as well for coming. Miss Alberta, I have to also acknowledge you because we are doing a project right now in reference to the over 30-something and for historic content. Colored Negro schools that existed in South and East Hillsborough County, of which Hillsborough County School Board have no records of. And so we are working with the Hillsborough County School District as well as USF to get those schools in the record books, because they're not. Sun City High School is not in the record books. There's no record of it. And when they went there, they were not afforded the opportunity to get a high school diploma. You'll be hearing more about that project as we move forward. So thank you so much for being here. I certainly appreciate it. And thank you for letting, when I call you, you answer the phone, because I'm tapping your brain, getting as much information as I can. So why are we here? Many of you have heard the story of Wimauma. It's a beautiful story. White man comes, he builds a train station and bridge, which by the way is still there, and he does all of these great things. That's okay, only when you read the story of Wimauma in its earlier beginnings, which actually took place in the 1800s with the first known white settler that came to Wimauma. The history is not totally correct. And I learned that. I grew up believing the story too, full disclosure. Imagine my surprise to learn that it was not accurate. So tonight, we're going to, with the time that I have, the little time, I'm going to do my best up here to cover over 100 years of history in 30 minutes or something. So. And again, please hold your questions for me to the end. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. And also you have trivia there. I'm going to be covering some things tonight that you will be able to answer your trivia questions. I didn't expect for everybody to know it. I'm just learning this stuff still as well. The Wimauma project started in 2023. So let us get busy. How did we learn about Wimauma? There is, unlike the city of Tampa, the city of Tampa have records. There are records for the scrub area, for all of the African-American areas, not South, not East County either. How did we learn the history? Because remember, I thought, a lot of other people thought that all of these records that are official records by the state of Florida and everybody else, that they was pretty much accurate. And then I started looking at it, through another lens, and I realized that the story is really pretty. It doesn't include any African Americans at all in this. And this was Hillsborough County. It was submitted by the Florida Department of State, Bureau of Historic Preservation. So In telling this story, because obviously we could not tell it from the beginning to the end in the natural way, so we're doing it backwards, okay? It would make sense, I promise you. So where do we get our stories from? Where do we get our history from? The dirt. We got our information from the dirt. This is the Wimauma burial ground. Now, the area in red, pay no attention to that. This was a massive burial ground. We did not know it was a burial ground. We learning this 2023, 2024, several ground penetrating radars, talking to some people, but more in particularly finding records. The good thing about newspapers, they're good and bad. One of the really bad things about the earlier newspaper stories as it related to African Americans was that they said nothing good. There was nothing printed, especially when Wimauma was found. And so as I was doing my research, I started seeing these stories about people that were working along the train line that as they died, they were like moved to the side and buried. And we call those shroud burials. And some of them wasn't even shroud, they just dumped sand on them. So I started asking questions because this project started with my sister wanted to make the cemetery pretty. And once I got in there, and you'll probably see all these folio numbers, I started tracing folio numbers. And all the folio numbers basically have bodies attached to them. All in people's backyards. There's a church there. There are bodies under the church. Burial ground. North, south, east, and west. Those graves are. That tells us that Wimauma was a burial ground. This is the dirt that I am referencing. This is the dirt that I'm referencing. So I had to start doing research through all kinds of channels. Family search, you name it, ancestry. How do you search for people that you don't even know is there? We knew somebody was there. And yes, that's a real grave over there. So after doing some serious researching and finding over 800 graves with records, burial, what do they call death certificates. So I started following the death certificates and I learned so much. I found Spanish American people that, veterans that are buried in there, no headstones. I found a lot of World War I and II, no headstones. Some do, but the majority do not. There are Native Americans from different reservations, no headstones, no records. It goes on and on. But one of the things that I really found was the history of Black Wimauma. So bear with me. We're gonna do this together. Okay. So before 1865, before there was a Wimauma, this is a gentleman that came from Thomasville, Georgia. The records will tell you that he came and he cleared land and he did all of these things. What the record does not tell you is that he went to Manatee County first. He was a slave owner. I found his slave schedule. Why did I even start drilling around with him? Because he has descendants in Wimauma and they don't talk about him at all. And I was wondering, what an incredible story. Why aren't you talking about your great-great-great-great-grandfather? Well, because he was a slave owner and they want nobody to know that. And that's where I found him, on the 1860s. 1860 census. And that's him. So something really incredible happened in 1880 on the 1880 census. And again, I'm going to thank you, Jay, because Jay found this information. And from Jay finding and sharing, remember she was a consultant, I was able to get the 1880 census and not only find the first known African-American man in the area that is now Wimauma, I also found his family were there as well. On the 1880 census, precinct 6, he's the only black family there. He's surrounded by a lot of white people, and now I want to know why. Why is he the only one in that area? And I have connected him to the gentleman that I just showed you. He worked for him. So, anyway, moving forward. So I wanted you to know that although we have the first known white man, we now have the first known African-American man that lived in Wimauma. The man that named Wimauma, Captain Davis, who turns out was not a captain at all. He was a corporal in the Confederate States Army. And he did not name Wimauma. You know, he named it his 3 daughters. His colleague named Wimauma, but Corporal Davis claimed it, and now he has the credit of naming a town that he did not name. Yes, I found that in records. And that would be Captain Davis. We still call him Captain Davis, although he's not. So the interesting thing about when Corporal Davis found Wimauma, 1902, he platted Wimauma in 1907. Do you think that the African-American people were part of that? Nope. And then he did another plat in 1913. And the final plat was 1914. 7 years. 1914 is when he included the African-American people in the area that became known as the quarters. Wimauma's quarters are in the northern eastern portion of Wimauma. It's in the back of Wimauma. And here's a picture from 1902 that I found in the National Archives of black laborers working on the railroad. Corporal Davis, he was really great with what he did. He built the Wimauma train bridge. He built, and you all probably remember the Wimauma Depot. In Manatee County, which is where he lived, he also built the bridge connecting Bradenton to Parramatta, which you had to cross the river. Now, because we are talking about the history of Wimauma, I would be remiss to not mention another a form of labor, a labor movement. A lot of people came to Wimauma to work in the sawmills. There were sawmills there when Corporal Davis got there. You're not going to see that in the history books, but there were many sawmills and turpentine steels around. Mr. Dave works at one that still have ruins at it. It is called the Willow Sawmill. It was built in 1921, I believe, in its entirety, and it subsequently closed in the late 1930s. It closed during the Great Depression, but it reopened again. That is the Willow Sawmill, an old picture that I found. These pictures are archived and digitized, and they're very old. So it's not a clear picture, but it would give you a snapshot a little bit, and you can see the train tracks and some other things. That's how big it was. It was massive. And this is a turpentine still. This was not at Willow. It was a few miles. If you're familiar with Manatee County and Highway 62, this steel was in that particular area. You notice all these kids? You notice these kids have like axes and all kinds of things, right? So at the Willow Sawmill, which is the only sawmill that I'm going to reference right now, at the Willow Sawmill, they had a school there for the Black kids. They had a church. They had 75 to 80 worker homes. They had a House of Joy. Y'all know what I'm talking about, we got kids. And the only place on that sawmill that wasn't segregated was the House of Joy, okay? But getting back to these kids, I found a lot of death certificates of kids that died in the sawmill. And as I stated, the day they died, the day they were buried, the same day. They were working in the sawmill. So these kids that you see with all of those, they were working. They were not in school. Wimauma is an agriculture area, okay? So this is a real picture from 1926 in Wimauma. People worked in the fields, as they still do, but not as much anymore because the farms have given away to the various government Shastas and all these different government programs that they have. But people came to Wimauma to work on the trains, to work in the sawmills. In fact, Levin's back here, your grandfather came from Milton, Florida, in, I think it was 1921 or 1922, to work in a sawmill. They came to Wimauma for that. I found the records. And this is potatoes, again in Wimauma, pea field, again in Wimauma. This is where it's going to get really interesting. So I mentioned, because I asked myself one day, and there's so much more information, but for the sake of time, I just wanted to give you a snapshot, but I need to give some time to this one. I asked myself, okay, where did people go to school? Where did people go to school, right? So I went to the Hillsborough County School District, trying to find, they got records, couldn't find no records. So I did a public records request. This was in December. I got the public record request back the same day. And I knew then it was not gonna be good. You don't get those back that fast. And so at the same time, I'm reading it, and a few minutes later, I get a phone call from Hillsborough County School District. And they're saying, Ms. Brown, we can't find these schools, so we need you to submit another one, but you gotta be more detailed. And I'm thinking, how detailed could I be? So I did it anyway. I submitted another public records request. I get another phone call, they just don't have it. So long story short, I ended up having to go to the Hillsborough County School Board and basically say, there are over 30-something for historic content, colored Negro schools that you guys have no records of that I can find. Surely they're somewhere. And the short answer was, we have to go down in the vault. The vault is underground. They have big books, right? They've looked through those books. There are no records. There are over 30 schools in South and East Hillsborough County, of which there are no records of. They did not exist. There are some pictures, we have some pictures of some of those schools. In Wimauma, there were several schools. They only have a record for that last African-American school. This school that you see right here is the Sun City Negro Strawberry School. It's called Sun City because that area, which is now Ruskin, was called Sun City, okay? Over here is the movie studio. This was that. And Sun City was called the Hollywood of the South. They made 2 movies there, and then the Great Depression happened. When the Great Depression happened, the banks called in loans like they did with everyone else, okay? So they started chipping away and selling the building brick by brick. And this isn't all of it. It was like 500 acres. There were mansions there. There was all these things because it was speakeasy. So when the speakeasy actors and actresses that were expected to come, they wanted to put them in mansions and all of these things, right? So once they finished putting the school like this, it stayed closed for a long time until the Ruskin School for the white kids burnt down. These were all old wooden schools. It burnt down. They needed a place for the white kids. So they put them in this building in the early 40s until they built present day Ruskin Elementary School. Once they built that school, this sat empty for a while. I know what you're saying to yourself. She ain't said nothing about the black schools. In Wimauma, there was a school that closed in 1948. It was called the Wimauma Negro School, and then they named it the Bethune School. It was there were 2 with the same name. They were old shacks. They closed. They were closed for 11 years. 1948 to 1961, if my math is right. There was no school for the black kids. Then the school board said, we need a school for the Negro kids, right? And they put them in this building that was by then condemned. It was, Miss Alberta would tell you that it was brick and mortar, but it was a condemned building. It was supposed to have been torn down, but it was not, because they needed a place to put the Negro students until they built a new Negro school, which they never did, okay? So the other thing I want to tell you about this school is that you all are familiar with Dobyville and Doby Elementary School, Miss Inez Doby. Imagine the surprise of the Hillsborough County School District when I told them that Miss Doby was the first teacher here when this opened in the late 1940s. She was the teacher. They didn't know. So she has a school named after her, and she did great things. They didn't know that, okay? The other thing about this school is from the time it opened until the time it closed, let me back up. From the time it opened until 1958, those students that went to this school were not afforded the opportunity for a high school diploma. The school went to the 10th grade. I have documents, credible research, records, that the school district, I have a meeting, one of their meetings, when they were discussing adding the 11th and 12th grade, and then they agreed that it was gonna cost too much money, and those students need to go to Tampa to Blake and Middleton. If you Google African-American high schools in Hillsborough County, you're only gonna get Middleton and Blake. And then as an afterthought, you'll get Don Thompson, okay? But it was Middleton and Blake. If you could not get to Tampa, if you did not have family members that lived in Tampa, if you didn't have family friends that lived in Tampa that you could stay with, right? You didn't go to school. So you're saying to yourself, what happened to the students? What do you think happened to the students? They went to work, and they went to the United States military. Those were the 2 options. There were a few kids that did go. Y'all, these are my Cuban pictures. I have to just keep moving them because, you know, I was in Cuba. Okay, so that is what happened. So today I am working with the Hillsborough County School District in University of South Florida. Because the Hillsborough County School District, what I asked of them, we found the last known teacher, he's in his 90s, okay? And University of South Florida is going to interview him and digitize and archive oral history They're going to do some oral histories. Hillsborough County School District, all of the students that I've been able to locate and find, the Hillsborough County School District in June, don't have the date yet, they're going to have a night where we want all of the students to go, or a day, and they're going to publicly acknowledge that that high school really did exist. Although it's going to go officially in the record books. Clap, clap, that's a clap, clap. And I've asked that those students that we have found that would be there, if they could give them honorary high school diplomas. They didn't get diplomas. There's a gentleman, you know him as our brother, B.E.A.T, and I always tell this story with him. Mr. Pate retired from the City of Tampa Fire Department as a district fire chief. That's a big deal, right? He went to this school. He didn't get a high school diploma. He didn't have one. And so he didn't want to work in the fields forever. Somehow he got to a school that he was able to get his GED. And I love telling that story because it shows that those students that went to this school against all odds, right? They had nothing. The books that they had, correct me if I'm wrong, the books that they had were books that were supposed to have been going to the incinerator to be burnt, but they gave them to them. They had nothing, okay? But they persevered. And today, a lot of these people, they are retired. They are contributors to society. They raised their kids. A lot of them went to the military. Some did not come back home, but though a lot of them did. They made a difference. They did not give up because they were given this. So we're trying to correct a lot of records. And it's taken a lot, it's a lot of work. Let's see, where am I? Y'all may not believe this, but I'm almost done. Yep. So, in short, Wimauma, agriculture, has bad reputations, a lot of violence in the past, no more. There are 3 Wimaumas now. The old Wimauma that we are trying to preserve, the Wimauma of right now, and then the Wimauma of the future that none of us is going to recognize because it's totally changing. But the African American people that grew up there, it was a community. There were stores there. We called them shops. The students could not just go anywhere. We had the Klan. They marched during the day. They didn't wait till night, okay? They marched where you could see them, am I not right? If you lived in the quarters, you saw the Klan, where they burnt their crosses and everything else. It is called intimidation, and it did not work, okay? At the shops, when the shops closed, it became the teen hangouts. That was a safe space. It was a village. Wimauma was a community. Yes, it has changed. The demographics has changed, but the heart and soul of that community is still there. And we would not have known any of this had it not been for that dirt in the cemetery. We went out there and we started looking. If you go there today, you will see a whole lot of depressed graves of people we have no idea where they are. They're all on Tico everywhere. But guess what? They left something there for us. It is called hope. It is called perseverance. It is called love of community and family. Those were the true pioneers. Those were the people that we grew up watching, playing in their yard, getting spanked, and everything else. That is Wimauma. The history is rich, and we will continue to tell the stories as we learn them. We are still learning. Every day, every time I turn on the computer, I'm learning something else. The other day, I was in the cemetery, and I saw this lady, a veteran, and the name just kind of didn't hit right with me. Korean War. And I discovered that her name is spelled wrong on her military headstone. So now I have another project. I have to fix this. I know. I'm trying to plan a wedding, y'all, in between cemeteries. I'm sorry. But I gotta make that right. I gotta make it right. I know nothing about her. Her name is spelled wrong. That's why I can't find anything on her. The VA, I can't find nothing because she didn't exist until that moment when that headstone was put in with the wrong name. The right war, Korean, that was in the 50s, and the lady. So you know I want to learn who she is, and I will. I will come back and I will tell you more about her once I learn more about her. Thank you for listening. I know I had to cut across the field with the Wimauma story, but it's so rich and it's so much. I didn't even touch on the Native Americans with the Black people living together in concert in Wimauma. That's a whole nother story. The Trail of Tears in Wimauma, all of that is so much. I hope that I can come back soon and give you a little bit more about Wimauma. Thank you for your time and your attention. I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Just really appreciate it. So Hillary was just saying we need to bring you back for a part 2. There's definitely going to be a part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's a lot of history, as you all know, and there's no way you can fit everything within 30 minutes. So we're going to do a Q&A, and Miss Jackie Brown is going to answer what she can, and you're going to give, if it's something hard, give her some time.
Give me some grace.
Give her some grace and some time. And I'm pretty sure once she does her research, she will be able to get it back to you, okay? And we're going to come around and collect those index cards we told you about during the Q&A as well. So anybody have any questions? Oh, Hillary, here you go. She got it. She has it ready. Go ahead. Here you go.
How about we answer those trivia questions first?
Oh.
How about that? Thank you. Got one. Yeah. Okay. The first known Wimauma Negro man was listed by name on the 1860 United States Census. True or false? False. The first African Americans were listed on the 1870 United States Census by name. Before that, the slave schedule of 1850, 1860, they only had male, possible age, pretty much it. Because the slave owners had 2 censuses, their own census and their slave schedule. It is called the slave schedule. That listed their property of slaves. So they didn't put their names on those censuses. It was not until after the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation and all of that, 1870 is when the first names were put on the United States Census. Wimauma's founder did not segregate Negroes in 1902. True or false? He segregated them. He segregated them. Remember, we were in the back of Wimauma, the northeast corner. So that's a false. Wimauma's quarters consisted of multiple homes, parks, and churches. True or false? False. We didn't have a park. There was no park. Wimauma, in the 1960s, there was a group of African Americans that went to use the white park behind the white school and were denied. It got real ugly. Long stories, but basically, Hillsborough County told the white park people, you gotta let the Negroes use the park, and that didn't happen, so they destroyed the building and then said they can come and use it. And this is the Wimauma Civic Center that's behind the school. And so Hillsborough County built, and there's a newspaper article said, County builds park for area Negroes. And this Bethune Park, today's Bethune Park, was built just for that area's African American people. Wimauma's earlier Negro schools were brick and mortar. False. They were raggedy shacks. Raggedy, like no floors shacks. Wimauma's earlier Negro settlers were part of a labor movement in search of a better life after slavery ended. That is true. That is true. Newspapers first mentioned Wimauma's colored church in 1903. It's true. And ironically, it was about church, about how loud the Negroes were having church service. Yeah, that was 1903. There would be no mention of Wimauma anymore until 1907 of African Americans. The name Wimauma is derived from an Indian name. That is false. Some Native Americans living in Wimauma became members of the Negro community. That is true. Ironically, on the census, they're not listed as Native. It says white, but they were Native. Hillsborough County built, well, I just told you that answer. Hillsborough County built a recreation center just for Negroes. That's true. There was a Negro high school in Wimauma. False. Over time, there were 3 raggedy schools. The last one was a bunch of portables. That was the school. Wimauma's Negro stores became teen hangouts after dark. Y'all were listening. The KKK burnt crosses in close vicinity to the Negro quarters. True. Negroes laying train tracks were buried immediately where they died. That is true. In the 1960s, Wimauma's Negroes received support and training from white people to help with their civil rights. It is true. In the old days, they called them freedom fighters, freedom riders, freedom. Later on, they called them vista workers. They came from up north and Midwest, and they came to Wimauma, a married couple, and they began the process of, and people don't like when I say this, but it's exactly what it was, training the African Americans how to fight without using their fist, how to use this. And then they needed a white face of someone important to be the sports person. And so there was a family in Wimauma. The daddy was a judge, the brother was a sheriff, the other brother was a post office, the Wadsworths. And Miss Iona stood up and she became the face. They subsequently became the Wimauma Citizens Improvement League. I found out recently that the Wadsworths were Native Americans. They didn't want nobody to know it. They didn't want the white people to know it because of all the racism. The Wimauma Cemetery was established in the 1870s. It was officially named in 2024. Huh? Y'all not sure? That is true. We found out that the cemetery was never named, never named. So there was a Wimauma project involving the migrants, everybody, Spanish, white, black, everybody took part in that Name the Wimauma Cemetery contest. Now, how many Negro schools were there in South and East Hillsborough County? 30. Over 30 plus. What is a strawberry school? What is a strawberry school? What's that? Sorta. No, so the strawberry schools, of which the majority of them were in the Plant City area. That's your hint right there. So when strawberries were in, school was out until after the strawberry season. The records would say that the kids, that school closed so that the students can go and help their parents in the fields. Wasn't true. The farmers had a relationship with the school board and that whole thing was going on. I will be back with even more. And next time I come, we'll talk a little bit more about the sawmills and the turpentine and what the turpentine was for. And I'm sorry.
No, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It's for the.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you first of all, because you know I love what you're doing. So, because we
Thank you.
grew up in Wimauma. But I had a question. How did Teaspoon come into being? Because we didn't grow up in the quarters. We grew up on Teaspoon. So how did that small community come into being?
Believe it or not, the newspapers from way back then referenced teaspoon. It was so out of the blue. I'm reading, and then I see references to all the Negroes that are moving up on teaspoon. And I'm like, aha. So I have not learned yet how that name became. I haven't learned yet because I have not had a chance to look in the property records to see where the African Americans got that property from. I know where some of the property, like Miss Elijah, and where all they lived. I know when the man the founder of Wimauma, when he, in 1914, the churches and all of that with the deeds, thanks to Jay over here. But I have not learned yet. I'm in so many rabbit holes trying to get all this information, plus plan a wedding. Any more questions for me? You mentioned the turpentine, though. That was one of the biggest industries that existed in Florida, but more so in Hillsborough County, was turpentine. They didn't call it turpentine. They called it Florida Naval Stores. And when I saw that, I'm thinking, like the military stores, you can go and get your little stuff. No, Florida Naval Stores was all about turpentine. They called turpentine in the production and the manufacturing and the tapping of the trees. That was called Florida Naval Stores. I don't know why, but that is the name of it. And I have a lot of information on it because I thought it was fascinating that they would call. Dave, did you know that they called turpentine the Florida Naval Stores? Yeah. Have you found any, Dave, have you found any of the money yet that the workers were paid out there?
I'd like to.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions for me? Thank you. Again, I really appreciate this opportunity. You have no idea to share Wimauma. Thank you very much.
You